Hey all, welcome to Monday. Welcome to Countdown Day, and you might be a little bit confused. We are going to look at, as voted on by fans, the top 10 iterations of Shockwave today. But you might be saying to yourself, hey, I didn't see the vote. We're going to talk about that as we head into the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, please like, comment, share. Of course, subscribe, and while you are at it, light them up, baby. Hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton and lets you know when content of all sorts goes appear on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links. All of that's in the description down below. Also in the description down below, and if you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we have to offer to you through Spring, or of course hit the join button at any given time and become a channel member. So, this was a bit of a weird one, and I'm going to say it now. We will be revisiting this topic. I certainly had enough votes to do this now. However, what I discovered when I went to count the votes was that a number of my posts had been identified on Facebook as spam. And now, to be fair, I did share 2 shorts on a number of pages and spaces and stuff earlier in the day, and this was my 3rd post of the day around to many groups, and a lot of them got removed, which means you didn't see it, and though I posted you didn't see it, it got removed. I mean, falsely, it wasn't spam, it was, you know, and I appealed it and whatnot, but that's what happened if you didn't see it. It was the whole, you know, meta being meta, right? So we are going to end up revisiting this. I'm not sure how soon, because we do have these results, but we will do a version 2 of this list later on. So if you didn't get to have your say now, it'll be interesting when we try it again, probably a year from now. I don't know. Whenever we do it, it'll be interesting when we try it again to see how a proper list, hopefully, Meta won't make the mistake that it made this time, but it'll be interesting to see a proper list compared to this one at that time. Nevertheless, we do have plenty of votes, and we do have a solid list here. We're going to do our honorable mentions first, and they include the Dark of the Moon iteration in fiction. So the movie iteration of the character of Shockwave. Important to know that distinction, because some on this list will be the in plastic version, some on this list will be the in fiction version. I didn't want to separate them. It was just the overall top 10, right? So this is that version, and a lot of people said because in Dark of the Moon he was a brutal threat and he had those worm things that attacked, and he himself is a formidable foe. So the Dark of the Moon movie version, and Fans Toys Quakewave. I think it's Fans Toys Quakewave. Yeah, a classic stand-in for our MP until the MP came out. They are the 2 honorable mentions. They did not make the list. Who did? What did? You know what we're going to do, my friends. We're going to do as we always do and kick things off with number 10. You guessed it. First. Kicking us off at number 10, we have this version. That's right, it is the MP Soundwave. And I'm sure that this one got the votes according to what the voter said because of its accuracy to, well, the character, right? Now, there have been a couple of repaints and whatnot of this mold. Some of them more animation accurate, some of them more, I guess, toy accurate. But it's undoubtable that when you look at both the alt mode and the robot mode of the MP version of Shockwave, that, you know what, it is obviously quintessential. Especially that light up yellow eye, that I don't know if it's light up or if it's light piping, because I'm not an MP guy, but man, does it really make the head pop and brings your eye to the head and makes you look at the rest of the body of the character. Great proportions, great styling. MP Shockwave takes the number 10 slot. Coming in at number 9, we go to Studio Series and this version. I believe this is 56, and it's the Dark of the Moon version of Shockwave. This is the one that people actually voted on. It wasn't just the character. We already talked about that in the honorable mentions. This is specifically this iteration. A lot of people said the same thing. The old Voyager was really excellent, but this improves upon that. It also adds in a couple of little, you know, extras with the parachute lad and brains, and I don't know who the other little one is. Wheelie? Is it Wheelie? I'm not sure who the other little one is. I didn't get this one. I haven't reviewed it, but undoubtedly I remember seeing it on the shelf and thinking to myself, The molded in detail, the amount of paint, the amount of sculpt is incredible. Do I think it's a true blue leader? I don't know, because I've never reviewed it, but undoubtedly what can be said is that it very much embodies the character from the films and very much looks like the character from the film has jumped off of the screen. Like, it was a very successful Shockwave, no doubt about it. I, for one, wish that he had come with, like, at least one of his, like, big worm monster things. I think that that was a missed opportunity, but nevertheless, this lad is a tremendous iteration of a very dangerous version of Shockwave, and he takes the number 9 slot. Number 8 takes us to comic books and this version. It's the IDW version of Shockwave, and a lot of people said the same thing, like it gave Shockwave so much lore. Now, we all know I don't know all that lore, so I'm only going to relate to you what voters said to me. We saw how he was, you know, once Senator Shockwave, and how he became the Shockwave we know, including how he only got his one eye, and the cruelty of Impurata. We also see the devolution of his mindset to become maniacal, and how his science experiments are really brutal and vicious, while also hungering for power. And then some people simply said, Shockwave, Dark Energon, need I say more? You know what? Not Dark Energon, Dark Cybertron. The story Dark Cybertron. Need I say more? Yeah, if you want a brutal Shockwave, IDW is the way to go. And enough fans think that this is a strong iteration of Shockwave that he was able to take the number 8 slot. Number 7 takes us back to G1 and this version. That's right, it is G1 toy version of Shockwave, right? It's the one that started it all, the release that started it all, with his, you know, huge stance, his sound effects, his light up blaster, I think his eye lit up, maybe his chest, I don't remember all the details now, even from the review, but man, as a kid he was spectacular. And getting the opportunity to go back, though that was on loan, to go back and take a look at Shockwave again, and I don't know if it was a KO or not, it was the closest I was going to get to looking at a G1 Shockwave. I have to say, man, it's still, you know, obviously it shows its age, but man, it is still a spectacular, spectacular Shockwave. He looks the part. He feels the part. The blaster was fun. The robot was fun. What's not to love about the Shockwave that started it all? And he takes the number 7 slot. Now, following on from number 7, at number 6 we have this version. The G1 cartoon version of Shockwave. And a lot of people said, look, his loyalty to Megatron was second to none. We knew he was always dangerous because he wasn't always with the Decepticons. And when he showed up, you knew that somehow, some way, Cybertron was getting pulled into it. And he was a serious threat. Also, when he would transform into his laser blaster, unlike Megatron, he didn't need to mass shift down for somebody else to use him. He could kind of fire himself and stand as almost like a laser turret. He was calm, cool, cold, calculating, and collected. And he is the one that Megatron trusted to leave Cybertron to, right? Cybertron was left in Shockwave's capable and destructive hands. You know what? Classic voice, classic robot, classic threat. Yeah, the cartoon version of Shockwave takes the number 6 slot. And now a hush falls over the crowd because we've reached the ever-coveted, ever-popular halfway mark. And at the halfway mark, we go all the way back to Transformers Animated. And this iteration of Shockwave, Animated Shockwave. I reviewed this guy recently. And you know what? It's such a good version. Voiced by, I believe, Corey Burton, who, of course, you know, brings back the G1 nostalgia feels as soon as you hear his voice. This one's still big, burly, brutal, but he's also conniving and sinister because he's undercover as Longarm. Pardon me. It is a very terrifying version of Shockwave because he's loyal to the Decepticons and he operates within the Autobots for such a long period of time that he actually gained their trust as Longarm, only to be the ultimate betrayer. What more could you want from a Decepticon than to deceive the Autobots? Yes, animated version of Shockwave. Ever the threat, ever the danger, and you thought he was your friend. Animated Shockwave takes the number 5 slot. Coming in at number 4, we have this version. It is the Bumblebee movie version. Now, some people voted. I kind of mashed them together here because some people said that they liked the character even though it was so little of it, just that 5 minutes. And a lot of people said, of course, the Voyager that came out. Not the studio series, little core class. I reviewed that. It wasn't great. But the Voyager gets a lot of love. And people said a couple of things. They said, when I first saw him in the movie, even though I knew it was stylized, it was like, yes, this is what Shockwave always should have been in the movies, and this is the way he should have looked, because it's a huge homage to the G1 version. And I agree. And then came the Voyager, finally, and people said, yes, this is the Bumblebee version of Shockwave we always should have had. And people said that that version is spectacular, even though there's no bicep swivel. Again, I haven't looked at that version, but I've heard the transformation is great. I know the look is great, and while the loss of a bicep swivel on a modern day offering would bug me, man, he must do everything else right to rank so high. Whether you like him on screen or you like the plastic Voyager iteration, what can I say? Bumblebee movie version of Soundwave takes the number 4 slot. Number 3 once again takes us back to comic books and this iteration. That's right, the Marvel G1 version. And again, I'm not really super familiar with it. I know he was a major threat. I know he was quite power hungry, and I believe he even at one point led the Decepticons, or certainly a sect of them. But the voters also added that he was unrelenting. When he got something in his mind, nothing was going to dissuade him from his goal. I don't know if that's true or not. And they said he destroyed so many Autobots, so many Season 1 Autobots. His unrelenting brutality, I suppose you could say, made him a fearsome foe. Shockwave's always a fearsome foe, but people said that his Marvel Comics iteration was one of, if not the most fearsome of them all. Who am I to argue with the voters? That solidified this iteration of Shockwave at the number 3 slot. Coming in at number 2, we have Siege Shockwave. Now, this one has been released originally in Siege with all of the extra bits and pieces that makes like the little thing he could stand on or helps him turn into like this weird spaceship thing. He has been released without all of that in a 3-pack. I think he was also released with the like comic book styling without all the extra accoutrement. You can do a fan mode of his blaster. You can even do, I guess, the ship mode if you want to turn it upside down without all the, extra bits and pieces and doodads on it. And fans kind of said the same thing. They said, look, if you like him as a ship, you can use him as a ship. But if you like him as his traditional laser blaster, you can really kind of pull that off as well. If you have the Centurion pack or a resin cast, like I do, you can even paint this and have him wield himself or somebody else wield him and leave him forever in robot mode if you like. In robot mode, I mean everything about this. Or, whether you have one of the other versions where, the purple might be lighter, the thighs might be a lighter gray, maybe like I said, the comic book styling, whatever. But you look at this and you know it's Shockwave. The proportions are correct, the look is correct, the shape of the head is correct, the shape of the chest is correct. Everything about this screams Shockwave. It takes everything that was good about the G1 that we kind of touched on in number, 7, sorry. It takes everything about the G1 that we looked at in 7 and modernizes it to be spectacular. He was overpriced because he was not a leader class at all. But he was the last Shockwave I ever bought, and unless something major happens, he is the last Shockwave I'll ever buy. He's just that good. And enough fans agree that he takes the number 2 slot. And now here we are, very tippy top number 1. And number 1 takes us to Transformers Prime. And that's right, the Prime version of Shockwave. And I apologize, by the way, if I've said Soundwave anywhere through here, because I feel like I probably did. Maybe I didn't. But if I did, I apologize. We all know I'm talking about Shockwave. And people said the same thing as they said about various other versions of Shockwave here. They said he was a cold, calculating, cruel, and brutal scientist, which he is in a lot of iterations. He was a big, burly, skillful bruiser, which he certainly is a ferocious threat in a lot of iterations. They said while the tank mode is certainly an adaptation from the G1 laser blaster, it also allowed him to go from being more of a static kind of laser turret to now being mobile. And a mobile Shockwave is terrifying. Plus, it was a nod to his animated iteration, which I agree with as well. But one of the big reasons was that Shockwave, this Shockwave, went so far as to resurrect a dead species. I mean, he done the whole Jurassic Park version of what Cybertron would have, right? Bringing back the fierce Predacons, the dangerous Predacons. A scientist with low morals, a thirst for knowledge and power defines this Shockwave, so much so that he actually brought the dead back. Whoa, what a mean version of Shockwave. And the Prime iteration takes the #1 slot. And that's 10 down to 1 once again, my friends. And other ones that had votes include the Transformers 1 version. I love that guy. You know he's going to be a threat if they ever get to sequels and stuff. But and he only has a few lines, but he's also funny. He's dangerous, but he's also funny. Love him. Love his look, too. What else do we have here? The Combiner Wars version, as small as it is. The Core Class Studio Series Bumblebee version, that had votes. The Purple Potato, the one that turns into a version of the Nemesis, that's a third-party iteration. Senator Shockwave, the comic book one that uses the Siege Seeker mold. The Skybound iteration of Shockwave, he's shaping up nicely too. Shockwave, the Radio Shack Gray iteration way back in the day. The FOC version, which I counted separate from the Prime version, even though technically they're the same. The Cyberverse iteration, that one surprised me a little bit, but that was the fiction version of him. And this one I really like, the Authentics version, which honestly is pretty good. It needed knees, but other than that, it was a pretty great Shockwave. Them and more had votes, but remember, we had a number of places where I normally collect votes from. Those posts got removed, so we will eventually revisit this again, but I do think, even with the about 400 or so votes that we ended up with, I think we still end up with a pretty solid list. Can't wait to see what an update one day will look like. So if you feel like you missed out here, again, don't despair. You will get another opportunity somewhere down the road, right? And now you even have time to think about which one you would personally vote for. Let me know if your favorites made this list or not. I appreciate you guys coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. Check us out on Patreon. See what we have to offer to you through spring. Or, of course, hit the join button at any given time and become a channel member. While you are at it, hit the subscribe button. Stick around. Have some fun with us here on the channel. And don't forget, not for a moment, not for a second, that somehow, someway, each and every single day, you right there, my friends, you do make a difference in the world. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights, at the stop motion premieres, or the old-fashioned way right here inside the videos.